Good morning, friends. How are you this morning? Pray that you're well. Hello, hello, everyone. Hope it's a beautiful day for you. Hello, hello. Hey, Vicky. Hey, Karen. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Got a little rain coming this way. Hey, Kristen. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing all right. All right. Let's get going this morning. Good morning. It is the 15th day of May at this 11:11 on this Wednesday. I hope you are well and good that we found ourselves in the middle of May. And I hope that it's a blessed and beautiful time for you. Uh, this is an interesting week in the sense that there's a lot of things that kind of stack up in this week. Obviously, we began the week with Mother's Day, so all of you moms, happy belated Mother's Day. But also this week, what happened on in May 13th in 1917 were the first visions and the first apparitions of Mary at the village of Fatima in the midst of World War One. Now, you know, we're about, I'm a congregational pastor here, and a bunch of stinking low Protestant. What am I talking about Mary about? We often, that's kind of a Catholic thing, and that's, and Mary's still a part of the whole package, but one of the things I think that is important for us to kind of think of and to remember, whether we embrace Catholicism, whether we think it's a bunch of hokum, whatever, wherever you come down on these things, is to recognize that there are things knocking at the door. There are things that are seeking to get our attention. And the apparitions of Mary within the Catholic tradition, I think, are in some ways a part of this. Now, you can understand them any different way you want. You can look at them any other different way you want. I'm not here to tell you, we should all kind of embrace Mariology and leap into that. That's not what I'm saying. Don't hear, again, don't hear what I'm not saying. But what I am saying is that these apparitions that have happened all over the world have a way of bringing about a an invitation, a knock on the door, if you will. And we as humanity and we as individuals can choose to accept these, or we can choose to ignore these. We can hit the snooze bar and go back to sleep, or we can seek to listen and to hear. When I was in Iraq, I had this experience where, particularly about this time of year, the month of May and our time there, our little chunk of the world, our little fob, had over 100 rocket attacks in the month of May. We had, it's a big place, so that sounds a little more ominous than it is. But largely every night, or somewhere along the day, there was something going boom somewhere nearby, and And that was, that, as you can imagine, and it plays. It was certainly playing on the nerves of my colleagues and my friends and my comrades in the headquarters. That there's and this kind of incredible sense of powerlessness that everybody had in that. We had our jobs. Everybody was doing their jobs. We were in the midst of it. We weren't kind of engaged with the enemy. I don't want to kind of overplay this in some ways, but at the same time, you know, most nights there were some rockets. Also, there were things that were going boom, and most everyone there was having this profound experience of this kind of just powerlessness to do anything about this, and to confront it. And sometimes they would, hit some of our soldiers on the greater base, not our part of our headquarters, but and that we would have to respond to that, and we would go to the aid station and we would care for those soldiers, and but that whole experience. But in the midst of that experience, I came out of my little shower trailer one morning. I was lucky enough to have shower trailers. A lot of people deployed didn't. So came out of my little shower trailer, and there in front of in the rocks was this little sparkling thing that I hadn't noticed before. And so, I think there are all kinds of things around, but it happened. It caught my attention in a way that I had never really caught. Had never really caught me before. And so I bent down and looked up, and it was uh, a Mary medallion. It was very beautiful. It had this very lovely blue to it. It actually obviously had some had some work put into it, and I was compelled to pick it up, and that Mary medallion had this way of, in the midst of all of this kind of shenanigans that were going on around us, reminding me that there was, even though, I'm the chaplain in this unit, I'm the one who is hopefully the steadier of the lot, if we can pull that off. But it had a way of grounding and reminding me that even in the midst of kind of watching the people around me kind of rattle a little bit with the kind of lack of sleep that was happening, because they were pulling 12-hour shifts through the days, kind of keeping the medical operations in the country going. And then later on in the night, they were up and contending with accountability formations and stuff like that. And the way that this would, naturally kind of wear on a people. And that little medal was of Mary, snuggled there in the rocks. Probably somebody had left or had lost, and coming out, in and out of the showers or in and out of the place, became this sign and this beacon and this touchstone for me of reminding us that we were surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses and a great presence of love that was beyond anything we might actually be able to know or do or affect, and that whatever was happening in us, it was contained within, well, the love of God. And so I wore that little medal for the rest of my time in Iraq, and I wore it for a few years afterwards, and I ended up at a retreat, a warriors retreat. We were actually training to care for warriors. I was doing some work with a guy by the name of Dr. Ed Tick, and I was at one of his conferences and met another guy, a Vietnam veteran, who was particularly struggling in that time, and I felt it was kind of time to move on. So I passed on that medal to him, that hopefully he would carry with him, and told him the story, and hoped it would be a source of peace for him. But the origin of this, the origin of this Mariology, Mary's visitation, both to the world, in the first place in Spain, in Zaragoza, which I actually got the opportunity to meet, and then to go to, and the opportunity to to hear the mysteries and the knock on the door that were the 5 Fatima prayers, the 5 Fatima visitations that would happen over the course of the year of 1917. And again, make of this what you will. Make of this what you will in terms of my experience. Make of this what you will in terms of how you understand the cosmology of the world. I have my attitudes and my ideas, and you should have yours. But what it is a knock on the door. There is a knocking for us. There is a will we listen to these things that are outside of, sitting in the Dunkin's drive-through, or that are simply about, getting the dishes done, or the tasks of our days, or even the wonderings of what are we to do next, or where are we to go. But will we listen to these knockings that come? Because within them, I think, are treasures for us. And that this week always, and the beginning of Fatima always reminds me of Mary showing up in this time, because later in my deployment, when our headquarters would change places and go to some place, well, it was, didn't have rockets. We liked that. There was this little bazaar kind of place outside of the base where you could go and kind of buy things and that sort of stuff. And in the midst of Iraq, in the midst of this Muslim country, and what we often don't notice or understand, there staring at me on the wall was this, which would come to grace the walls of my office for the rest of the time, and now graces my office here. That this would be it is a little leather lithograph, or pressing, or whatever they call these, of Mary, a little devotional that one would hang on their wall. And so, what is Mary doing in a Muslim country? Well, she is one of the 4 sacred women of Islam. There's Mary and Fatima, and I forget the other 2. Sorry, but there's 4, and so it is in part a Christian devotional, but it's also a devotional that went across lines. And so when I saw that there, it made me smile, but having come through a few months before that experience of the month of May, and then to find her in the next place that we would go, continuing to knock, continuing to invite. Jesus in Matthew tells us, I stand at the door and knock. Tells us in Revelation, I stand at the door and knock. God, with these different apparitions and these different ways, God stands in the door and knocks to us. Now, you can accept the grand cosmology that comes with them, or you cannot. But within them is great beauty. Within them is great invitation to a deepening awareness of the reality of the spiritual world that surrounds us, the reality of life and life in abundance, which I don't mean just our life, but I mean life. I don't mean just green grass and crab apple trees and Taylor Swift. I mean life. I mean all of the saints that draw close to us, that have gone before us. I mean the reality of the spiritual worlds, the demons that would plague us, the angels that would nurture us, and all of the grand busyness that is around us as people of God, and that we are invited into again and again and again by this simple knocking on the door. So what are we to do with all this? The great D.H. Lawrence, right, he wrote this. He said, what is the knocking? What is the knocking at the door in the night? Is it somebody who wants to do us harm? No. It is the 3 strange angels. Admit them. Admit them. Along with the apparition of Mary, don't mind me. Along with the apparition of Mary that showed up of May 13th of 1917, right after what would become Mother's Day. The 3 children would receive prayers to pray with that apparition, and they would receive them from an angel. And so I want to invite you today to simply think of this first prayer that they received on May 13th, and because I think it's a great prayer for our age. And again, whatever you may think, however you may understand this, however you may hold it, I want you to trust that in these things and around these things and behind these things is truly Jesus knocking at the angels knocking to be a part of our lives in a deeper and more powerful way and to guide us home. And so here's the prayer. My God, I believe, I adore, I hope, and I love you. I ask pardon for those who do not believe, who do not adore, do not hope, and do not love you. How powerful is that invitation? How, if we were in the business of making things up as a 9-year-old girl, I'm not sure that's what we would make up. That somewhere in these world and somewhere in this mystery of it all and somewhere in this grasping and is this gentle knocking, this gentle invitation for us to pray and to believe and to hope in God, and to pray and to believe and to hope for those who do not hold dear the sacred and the true and the beautiful. So on this mothery week that is, I invite you to pray the prayer of Fatima, and that in it we might find together some peace of holy goodness and the knocking of Jesus Christ to come into our lives a little closer. All right, peace and grace to you, my friends. This is my hope for you on this day, and I hope you stay dry in the rain, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.